Visionary entrepreneurs, they find themselves stuck in a certain role, which they might even be good at, but they hate it and they become that bottleneck.
John Mark Fitzpatrick, the man who takes your business chaos and he transforms it into order, focus, and dare I say it, sanity. So Traction is a book about a methodology for running your business by a guy called Gino Wickman.
Gino, when he came up with this system, he was solving specifically for helping those visionary entrepreneurs sort their businesses out.
No matter how big we normally build our businesses, all we typically do is scale chaos.
There are three key functions. If any one of those functions is weak, then you haven't got a business.
But Traction as a book doesn't tell you how to be better at finance, how to be a better marketer, how to be a better salesperson. How does it help you put that together as a business?
We make sure we get the right structure in place to take this business to the next level.
Do you have to run it as Gino wrote it?
What we say is you'll get the best results if you do it pure.
Guys, Matt Haycox here, and welcome to another episode of the No Bollocks podcast, where today I'm very, very excited for A, what I'm going to learn, and B, well, I guess what you guys are going to learn and listen to too. I've got with me John Mark Fitzpatrick, who is an EOS implementer. So, what is an EOS implementer, I hear you ask, from far away? Right, let me set the scene a little bit here. I have heard about a book called Traction for quite a long time. Just, you know, as you know, I'm an avid consumer of information, and this book Traction is always popping up its head along with other classics like the E-Myth, for example. And you know, any newsletter I read or any podcast I listen to, you hear Traction. Didn't particularly know what it was, and for whatever reason, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I bought a copy of the Traction book. I think it was part of my newfound obsession with Amazon books. And I bought Traction, and as it says, you know, it's like, if you like Traction, you will also like. And I bought a few other books in the Traction series that we'll come on to in a minute, and plus countless other books as well. And I'm now proud to say I've overtaken my missus for monopolising the Amazon delivery boy. I get book after book after book delivered on a daily basis. But what is Traction? So Traction is, I say story, it's not really a story, but it's a book about a methodology, an operating system for running your business by a guy called Gino Wickman. And I'm just going to set this from a top level, and John Mark can get into the nitty gritty. Otherwise, we won't even need him here as a guest. I feel like this is going to be a Traction monologue. But Traction is the book all about what is the operating system and I guess how to implement it. Other books in the series, if you're watching the video version of this, you can see my lovely little props on there. We've got Rocket Fuel, we've got What the Heck is EOS, we've got, what else have we got?
The EOS
We've got
Life.
Get a Grip, the EOS Life, all, I guess, not so much variations on the theme, but I guess probably talking to a slightly different audience. And as I say, it's an operating system by which to run your business, which from memory, I think Gino says it's ideal for businesses of 10 to 200 employees. And I can tell you from personal experience, as I'm sure most of you guys listening to this will probably agree, that no matter how big we normally build our businesses, all we typically do is scale chaos. And I have been doing that for many years. And yes, I've probably built big businesses. I've made decent amounts of money at times, but I've never done it in a relaxed manner. I think if that's the way to say it. It's been chaos for me. It's been chaos for the staff, and I've been the bottleneck to everything. And I always say that my dream life would be one where I could turn off my mobile phone for a long time and turn it back on again, and the world hasn't ended. I can't go to the toilet without my mobile phone, but EOS could possibly change that for me. So, having devoured Traction, rang a couple of my business partners, people in companies that I've invested in. Said, guys, jump on Amazon Prime, buy Traction. You're going to love it. They rang me back. They were like, yeah, I'm all over this. Let's do it. And there's 2 or 3 ways you can implement. You can read the book and you can crack on with it yourself. There's like an eosworldwide.com website, which I guess is the website that goes with the book, and you can read more stuff on there. I think you can pay them a few quid a month for some other tools and things, to be able to almost like distance learn. Or you can go the whole hog, the VIP service, and find yourself an implementer, which is somebody else who is trained in the methods of EOS, who will come into your office and train you how to do it, help you implement it, and I guess be a sounding board. So I obviously want nothing but the VIP service, and my VIP concierge is John Mark Fitzpatrick himself. We met a few weeks ago in Dubai. I was sold by him. I was already sold on the concept anyway. John Mark further cemented me, and one of the businesses we did an implementation day, a day one implementation day a few weeks ago. Very early stages for us, but I know that there is light at the end of the tunnel and nothing but positive writing on the wall. So I thought, let's get John Mark on the podcast, and I want you guys to hear about Traction, to learn about the system, and to be able to implement some of the stuff in your business. So I'm sure by the end of this conversation, we'll have been able to identify where some problems may be for you, some ways you may be able to improve in the meantime anyway, but then hopefully you can hammer on down to eosworldwide.com, jump on Amazon, buy some books, and give John Mark a call himself. So thanks a lot for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
That was quite an intro, that wasn't it? Quite
it was huge. I think you covered everything.
Yeah, should we go home now? No, all right. Listen, let's kind of get to the crux of the problem for business owners or entrepreneurs, people listening. Why does this situation occur? Why can we have a good business idea? Can we have a potentially good implementation, but whilst we're good at implementing the idea of moving the business forward, there's pieces falling down all over the place and fires building in every corner? So
what normally happens is a visionary entrepreneur will be the person that sets up this business, that gets the ball rolling on creating a new business. And so what that means is, like, visionary entrepreneurs are certain types of people, right? They have high tolerance for risk, which is part of the reason why they're the ones setting up a business. But when it comes down to things like really systemizing and running the day-to-day, there are things that in the strengths and weaknesses of visionary entrepreneurs that don't necessarily work well with those types of tasks. So you find so often that you get these visionary entrepreneurs. I'm assuming like yourself.
I am a terrible not a terrible implementer, but I guess I definitely call myself bigger picture. I like to have the ideas, but then actually pinning me down to get certain things done is not easy.
And that's the thing. So Gino, when he came up with this system, whatever it was, 25 years ago, he was solving specifically for helping those visionary entrepreneurs sort their businesses out. And originally, it wasn't actually about getting businesses to be more profitable, although that is it's a side effect, right? But he was more about giving those visionary entrepreneurs their lives back, because they find themselves stuck in a certain role where they have to do stuff which they might even be good at, but they hate it. And so they get in that kind of role, which is about running the day-to-day, about being on the front lines, about having the tough conversations, and they become that bottleneck. Because if you hate a role, you're not going to be good at it. You're gonna slow things down. You're gonna freeze up as well when there's certain things that you don't want to do. And so Gino created the system basically in the beginning to specifically help those types of visionary entrepreneurs.
Can we talk about some specific problems that typically businesses, or that you see in businesses getting wrong time after time? And again, I'll peel back the curtain on my dilemmas here. And I think two big things for me are A, me being a bottleneck,
right,
and B, lack of documented, consistent processes and procedures.
Right.
And I guess so the knock-on effect of that is you recruit someone, you spend all this time training them up, they leave, and you then have to you have to go right back to the beginning. And even if you manage to recruit another perfect hire, you've got to train them all up again. Yeah. And even if you've got good people, they might do things in their way which might not be our way. It's not that theirs is better or worse, or mine's better or worse, but it's just not my way. Yeah. I mean, they're two key things for me. But what about other business owners or companies that you go into? What typically do you see as?
Well, 9 times out of 10, the main thing that business owners worry about are people, right? So we talk about there's really common frustrations, and there's people, there's not enough profit, there's, I've tried everything and nothing's working, but the thing that happens 9 times out of 10 is, I just don't have the right people, they don't get it, and consequentially that means that they can't trust those people to do it the right way every time. They can't trust those people to delegate what they need to delegate in order to get things off their plate. And I mean, that's the main problem around people. And so, what were the 2 problems you mentioned? So you
lack of documented systems and processes, and me being a bottleneck.
So the first thing we talk about with people is getting the right people in the right seats. And just to focus on the right seats bit to start with, we make sure we get the right structure in place to take this business to the next level, right? And that involves defining and customizing to whatever unique organization we're talking about, the leadership team level, which is made up of a certain number of functions, right? And for each of those functions, we define 5 key roles. And then what happens is you've got 5 key roles for each of your functions. And then when you're hiring, you can use those 5 key roles very easily to fit people, to put right people into the right seats. And so when you look at your business as a whole structure, right, you talked about being a bottleneck. So if you're in a certain function, perhaps the visionary seat, you've got another set of roles, key roles in the integrator seat, and you've got another set of key roles in these leadership functions across here on the leadership team level. And once you can kind of separate all those roles out into those different seats, you'll see very clearly and transparently on your accountability chart where, who, and what seat should be doing what. And that means that where you're being a bottleneck, right, you'll see that perhaps some of the things that you're being a bottleneck on, those roles should be perhaps in this seat here, this person should be doing it, or this person down here should be doing those roles. And that's why, because you're retaining some of those accountabilities or responsibilities somewhere, perhaps where they shouldn't be, perhaps you're doing something that perhaps you're good at, but something you don't necessarily love doing. It's about getting those off your plate and giving those to someone who loves doing it and is good at it. So that's the key, I think, with bottlenecks and, as far as people are concerned. And then you talked about, having documented processes in place. So what we talk about in EOS is taking the handful of processes that are in any business that make the business work and getting them done the right and best way every time, right? And so the first step is to sort of define what those handful of processes are that make the business go round and that make you money. And normally they're things like, you've got your HR process, you've got your sales process, marketing process, you'll have a couple of 2 or 3 ops process, perhaps 4 customer service, accounting process. And what you want to do for each one of those processes is take a kind of Pareto's principle 20-80 approach to defining the absolute key steps, the sort of 20% of the main steps to get you 80% of the way there. So the key steps in that process. And the point here is that once you've defined a process in place, without defining a process, there's no way you can improve it, right? And so, again, just back to why we do this, right? So we get the main steps in place, and that's all contributes towards getting the right things done the best way every time that ensures consistency, right? Ensures manageability of those processes, and in the end, increases profitability, right? And scalability. Because once you've got processes in place, you can bring new people on, train them up, and get them doing that process over and over again. It makes everyone's life a lot easier. So that's about documenting processes and have them in place.
And just on that, and I don't want to take the shine away from traction,
right.
but you've read the E-Myth, I take it.
I have, yeah. Michael Gerber, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm just on at the minute, not quite finished yet. But one of the things it talks about is, let me try and I'll probably butcher this, but it basically talks about the product of a great business is not the items it sells, but the business itself.
Right.
And the last few chapters I've been reading are really hammering home. I'm sure many people think this is blasphemous, but hammering home on how McDonald's is one of the best businesses in the world. Not because they make the best hamburgers, but because in the business of business, they do it as good as anybody or better than most in terms of systems and procedures and documented, and and the fact that anyone of any skill set can be put into the positions in those businesses. And I know, they're two separate books with two separate goals or endings.
Yep.
But I can see a good crossover between those two.
Absolutely, that's a huge mindset shift for a lot of business owners, right? So I've got a business, an advertising agency. So when we started, all I cared about was making great advertising. And that's all I cared about for about the first 10 years. And we got 10 years in, me and my partners looked at each other and we realized we didn't make any money. We had below market salaries, our margins were around 4 or 5%. It just wasn't serious. We were just, I don't know, there was just no reason for this business to exist, really. Okay, it was a great product coming out, but we were getting nothing out of it. And the aim, the sort of end goal of a business is really to enrich the shareholders, right? That's the idea. And you're absolutely right that sort of mindset shift is something that needs to happen when you're talking about traction as well. How did you phrase it? That it's the business itself.
Yeah, the product of a great business
Right.
is not the items it sells, but
Right.
the business itself, like the business model.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that shift from going from, hey, I'm, for me, just an advertising guy, to becoming an entrepreneur. And that's, in my case, we actually read Traction, and that was the catalyst to becoming that entrepreneur, to becoming business people, to improve our business and what have you.
Hey, Matt here. Just interrupting myself quickly to say thank you for listening to No Bollocks. But did you also know I've got another podcast, Stripping Off with Matt Haycox? Very different. No Bollocks is the quick daily business tactics that you need. But Stripping Off, we go deep, deep, deep with a CEO, with a celebrity, with an athlete, with an international inspiring character. We find out what makes them tick, we find out how they got to where they got to, and we find out how you can learn and benefit from them too. So jump on over to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you listen to your content, and I'll see you on a future episode.
I think it's a slight tangent, so I won't go too deep on it, but I think ultimately the problem with most people who start a business, and and again, obviously this is what it talks about in the E-Myth, the reason for that such enormous failure rate of startup businesses and new businesses is because there's a wild difference between being good at a technical skill, good at doing something, whether that's making adverts or or being a videographer or being an author or whatever, doing any of those things. There's a massive difference between practically doing the skill and turning it into a business. And I'd say 50% plus of the people that write to me, email me for advice or talk about questions, they're always asking or saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. I'm the best at what I do. Mm-hmm. I think they're the best at what they do, but maybe they are the best at what they do. I'm the best at what I do. I can't get any customers.
Right.
Kath down the street is a shit beautician. I'm the best beautician, but I'm going broke, and she's got customers coming out of her door. Or right. I've trained as a life coach. I live and breathe, and I'm so passionate about being a life coach. Yeah. But how do I get customers to come to my door?
Right.
And it's those two wildly different things. And like I said, I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole because it kind of takes us a bit away from traction. But it's about, I guess, knowing your place and having the right people on the team to carry out the right tasks.
I'd say if we go back to what I was talking about those functions at the leadership team level. So we talk about there are 3 key functions, right? There's sales and marketing. You have to go out into the market, create demand, convert leads into sales and orders. You got your ops, creating the service, delivering the service, or both. And you've got your finance, which is managing money, ensuring profitability, buying and selling assets, whatever you've got. And so what we talk about is if any one of those functions is weak, then you haven't got a business. And so those people who are technically really good at what they do, they've just got ops sorted. They haven't got any sales and marketing going. They've got no clients coming in the door. And so each one of those has to be really strong. If you've got, you have to have ops strong as well. You have to be able to technically do the product, because if you've got loads of clients coming in and ops isn't very strong, then clients are never going to come back, right? They'll be thoroughly unhappy every time they come to you for any service. So again, you don't have a business. And equally, the finance side has to be strong as well. You can get loads of clients in, technically make your product deliver the service really well. But at the end of the day, if you're not ensuring profitability, there's no point in having this business, and
so in the context of traction for the guys watching and listening, and I guess I kind of know these answers, but I'll ask the questions of them. We talk about, let's say, needing to have the finances right, needing to have the ops right, the sales right, the marketing right. But Traction as a book doesn't tell you how to be better at finance, how to be a better marketer, how to be a better salesperson. So how does it help you put that together as a business?
Yeah, that's a big question. So so we teach concepts like the one I've just talked about. But to sum it up, right? What's Traction all about? So it's about aligning around a vision. It's about aligning also around the concrete plan to get there, because so often, you can have a great vision and you can have, fantastic plan, but like if you don't really understand, day by day, week by week, quarter by quarter, what it is and how you're getting there, then there's no point in having a great vision. And so you've got your vision, you've aligned around a plan to get there. And then what we do is we give tools and disciplines to create the systems and infrastructure to get that plan done, right? To get people feeling accountable for all the targets they have in place, targets for the week, targets for the quarter, year, 3 year, and 10 years, and really get them moving day by day towards that vision. That's basically it in a nutshell. At the same time, we what we do in our sessions, and just again like a byproduct of the sessions, is that the leadership team becomes more cohesive, more functional, is able to actually have fun together. Because so often you find that leadership teams are full of people who are fantastic professionals, but they've got big egos and don't necessarily want to play together nicely with their top team. And also, so really often, they consider their main team, their main people, as the team that they manage, when in fact what should really be happening is that the main team is that leadership team. And so once you've got that in place, you're in a good place to help each other out, solve issues efficiently, and, as I say, get moving, like day by day, week in, week out, executing on a specific plan and vision.
One of the principles that you talk about in the book is everybody has a number.
Right.
And I guess that's probably not so true. Everybody has potentially many numbers. I think you talk about having having between five and seven. Yep. And there's so many good takeaways for me. But one of those. That is almost like the most simple thing that everybody listening to this could go and implement immediately in the business and make a massive difference, whether or not you get into the rest of Traction or not. Yep. To be able to really break down every role. And whether it's a metric to track, whether it's an output to track, or whatever it may be.
Right.
I had this conversation with my sales manager this morning, because we were sat in a sales meeting yesterday, recounting on the previous week, and he was talking about the fact that people needed to do some extra telephone calling this week because they were behind on the numbers last week.
Right.
I'm saying, but that is not something that we should be finding out about on a Monday morning. It should be really fucking simple.
Right.
Whatever the number is, you've got 100 calls a day to make. If you haven't made 100 calls on Monday, then you've got Tuesday to make up for them. Wednesday you can make up for them. Come Friday, Friday, if you're still a few behind, either you're not going back, you're not going home on Friday, you're working over the weekend. I mean, one of the people in our team we've recently hired is a copywriter, writing content for online, and I mean, she's a remote worker, but she only really has one metric we want to track. She was hired to write 3,500 words a day.
Yep.
And when you break it down to that simplicity, just track it every day. She started off on her first week, she was writing 1,200 a day, 1,800 a day, 1,300 a day. I'm saying this is a worry. I mean, a separate conversation. This is a worry, given that she was hired specifically understanding she hasn't just sloped off after a while. She started on day one at 30% output. However, we get to Friday, it's very simple. You're going to work the weekend and catch up your numbers. Or there won't be a job for you on Monday.
Right.
And I've potentially oversimplified that a bit, but when you look at every role, to manage it like that, it does that whole thing of always being in the weeds. What's everybody up to? It's very easy to start to step back and have that helicopter view.
Right. Yeah,
once you start to understand what the numbers are that everybody's supposed to work to.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, this, but we talk about having a scorecard in place, right? That gives you weekly numbers. And I don't know if you remember this, on our day session, we talked about you're on a desert island, right? And you've got no access to any tech, any computers, any emails or anything. But you've got a cabana boy or girl or whatever you want.
Definitely a girl.
that can come out to you with a piece of paper, with your scorecard, with your numbers on. And those numbers on there are going to give you an absolute pulse on the business. And that's the way we kind of, we get onto defining what are those key numbers that are going to give you that helicopter view of the health of the business. And so it's normally 5 to 15 numbers to give you an absolute pulse on the business. And
just to be clear, that's 5 to 15 numbers across all of the different business units. So it's not 5 to 15 from finance and 5 to 15 from ops and
Yeah. So it's across all the functions. And the key is, we talked about defining those key roles to start with. We talked about in each of the function having one person accountable, right? And so what happens is in this scorecard, you have a place where you define what the number is. And quickly about that, we're talking about leading indicators. This isn't about financial numbers. It's not about your P&L. It's not about money received, because money on the account, right, that you've received, that's telling you what's happened in the past. What we want to understand is what's going to happen in the future to get businesses and leadership teams better at predicting, right, what's going to happen. Because just quickly about predicting, you've got public companies, when they miss their numbers, stock goes up and down. Fine. In the businesses that we talk to, 10 to 250 people, if you miss your numbers, if you predict wrong, then you're going to have to make cuts, you're going to have to shut the business down. So it's really important to get really good at predicting. So what we do on that scorecard is we define what the number is, what the weekly number is, and it's leading indicators, things going to tell us what things are going to happen in the future. And then you write down who is responsible for each of those numbers. And this is where it gets a little bit pernickety, right? So you've got your number, you've got who is accountable for it, which doesn't mean that person is necessarily going out and putting the data in, collecting the data. It's the person who's actually influencing the number the most. And so there's who's accountable, what the number is about, and then you have 13 weeks of history. And what happens when you've got all those numbers lined up every week for 13 weeks? You start to see trends and patterns. And you see when things are a little bit off, you've got to put your attention on it. Or there's an issue you need to go and resolve with the team. And in that way, you're really getting an absolute pulse on the business and what's happening. And that's all just to say to get really good at predicting what's going to happen in the business.
You've mentioned a few times about the right people in the right seats. Right. I think that's a concept that comes up time and time again in the book. And the three initials that you talk about is GWC, isn't it? Do you get it? Do you want it? Do you have the capacity to do it?
Yeah.
And it's almost funny because when we're looking at anybody else's business, it's easy to see the wood from the trees. But that whole concept of the fact that you could have the wrong people in the wrong seats, because you think, well, I go to work with them 8 hours a day. Surely I must have noticed if they are the wrong people in the wrong seat. But in traction itself, Gino gives a few examples of situations of, never mind once EOS has been implemented, but just sitting down in the implementation days when people have these kind of aha moments of shit, I'm in the wrong seat, or I thought I was a visionary, but really I'm an integrator, or I don't even want to be here, full stop. I'm going to hand the business over to you. That was something that kind of struck a chord for me.
Yeah. I had a story the other day that once someone actually defined what their vision was, and everyone got together and said, yeah, that's a great vision, and we're aligned around it. There was one person thinking, oh my goodness, like this I'm just not into this at all, so I'm out. But
you actually saw that with your own eyes?
No, that was a story told to me by another implementer. But it happens, right? So you define all these seats, and what we do on the focus day, on that first day we spend together, we define the seats without thinking about people to start with, because the mindset is about just creating the right structure first to get the company to the next level. So you haven't even thought about people yet, and the people in the room, you get them to act like they've all been fired, but they're all on the board of directors trying to get trying to steer the company to their next stage of development. And what happens is, because you've defined structure first, it doesn't necessarily mean everyone in the room has a seat, right? And what we say is, we warn everyone, right? So, you might not have a seat at the end of today, and that's okay, because there's going to be a whole load of other seats that you'll probably fit in somewhere else in the organization.
Somewhere else in life.
Somewhere else in life, exactly. But sometimes people in the room lose their jobs, and sometimes it works a little bit different in practice, because people will realize that they're not in the right place, and they'll move themselves out of the organization.
Well, I'm pleased to say I wasn't fired yet in our implementation day. Tell me, do you have to, and I know I asked you this question when we were doing our implementation day, do you have to run only on EOS if you're doing it, or rather, do you have to run it as Gino wrote it? Or are there ever instances where you might think, listen, I totally get him, but just in my business here, there's a little tweak that should be made?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So there's a couple of bits here. So the first one is running on one operating system. What we talk about is you got to choose one, because what happens if you've got 2 operating systems? It just means you've got different terms here, different terms there, and so everyone's speaking a different language. So you've got to run on one, whether that be EOS or not. Run on one. And then the second bit, can you tweak here, tweak there? We preach about you've got to run it pure to get the best results, right? It doesn't mean people don't tweak it here and there. That happens in practice, but we teach it pure, and we say, there are 200,000 businesses worldwide using EOS tools today.
EOS tools, or running on right. EOS? EOS
tools, and there are, I'll probably mess it up, but around 30,000 running on EOS.
Pure EOS.
Yeah. And we'd say they're more or less running on it pure. So, what we say is you'll get the best results if you do it pure.
And don't worry, we don't have to name any other competitive systems here, but just for the sake of understanding, you say you have to run on a single system, whether it's EOS or something else, you have to run on that single system. But now I'm starting to learn more and more about EOS. I struggle to imagine how wildly different another operating system could be. I mean, I could imagine, it's like, I don't know, McDonald's and Burger King. I mean, you know, to all intents and purposes, you know, they're talking to the same audience, you know, they're doing the same thing. You know, I could imagine someone else taking Traction and putting their face on the cover as opposed to Gino's, but I can't really imagine how you could have wildly different operating principles because the stuff it talks about is so simple, common sense, pure, whatever words you want to use. I mean, I assume you've read some competitive systems, and you're a business operator yourself. I mean, are there some really different ways to do things out there?
So, as a rule, we don't research the competition and we don't talk about the competition. But you're absolutely right. The thing about EOS is that it's just real world, functional, timeless tools and concepts, and they're common sense, right? They've been around for 100 years. They'll be around for 1,000 more, and it's not about, and there's nothing in there about like the latest trends or fads, right? It's just, you know, no magic pills, no silver bullets. It's just real world, functional, practical stuff. And I know what you mean. I find it difficult to sort of imagine that there's another way of doing things. Obviously, I've drank the Kool-Aid, as it were, already, but you know, that's just me, I think.
But yeah, I mean, like when you look at all the tools, like I don't know, you look at a level 10 meeting. Yeah. I mean, call it a different name, call it a super duper whizzy meeting, well, whatever you want to call it, but you still want to achieve the things that a level 10 meeting is. You know, right. You want to sit everyone down, you want to rally them up and get their head in the game with, you know, what you guys would call the segue. Yeah. You know, you want to blast through last week's to-do items and make sure they've been done. You want to bring up any new problems, you want to dish them out to the people, and you want to do it with as little distractions as possible and finish on time. I mean, I don't know how else you'd write that up. I mean,
that's right. That's right. It's almost perfect. Just that, you know, reporting bit. Any issues come up, drop it down to your issues section, and then when you get to issues, you know, just get together, prioritize, identify, discuss, and solve. And then whenever any action steps come up, you know, make sure someone's accountable to them, and whether it be a to-do that's got to be done by next week, or what we call a ROC to be done by within the quarter, you know, everyone's got their things to do.
Why do you think someone might think, oh, that's not for me. I don't need, whether it's EOS or whether it's a competitive system. You know, I'm fine because, for example, I'm a 3-person business. It's me, my missus, and my daughter. You know, we run it together. You know, we know what we're doing. Yeah.
So what I'd say is, you know, first of all, we have our, you know, target, which is, you know, 10 to 250 employees. So perhaps, you know, there's a reason if you have 3 employees, you can't afford to do it, but you can always self-implement, right? Mm-hmm. But perhaps you can't afford to work with an implementer. But the main reason why someone would say it's not for me, if I'm being brutally honest, is because they're not comfortable with accountability.
I was going to say they're living in denial.
Yeah, exactly. What happens when you implement is that everything starts to become really crystal clear, and people that don't want to be accountable for reaching their numbers or just for, you know, doing what they're supposed to do, those people, they stick out like a sore thumb, which is great for the business owner who's trying to get the business somewhere and grow it, but not so good for the guy who's trying to hide.
So for everyone who's been listening and been watching, what is their next step? They want to run away, jump on Amazon, pick up a copy of Traction?
Yeah, so we always talk about, like, the first thing you want to do is read Traction. So Traction's for everyone. And then there's all sorts of other books. So Rocket Fuel is for the leaders in the business, that what we call the visionary and the integrator. What the heck is EOS is a little bit down the line. So that's for employees of companies that run on EOS. And then Get a Grip is for people that are on the leadership team. And that's like what they call a business fable. So that's a story about a company that's struggling in some way, and then they implement EOS, and about the sort of ins and outs, the emotions and what have you. So that's in terms of the books. If you want to have a call with me, then my details are available on the site.
I'll put your details on the show notes when we do this live anyway.
Great. And then, you know, with me, I'll just short call, and then I do what's called a a complimentary 90-minute meeting.
We did that at my house with a few distractions, didn't we? A few tangents.
That's right. 1 or 2 tangents here and there. Try to keep them to a minimum. But all the key information got across, right? And that's complimentary, and then off the back of that, you can decide if you want to work with me or another implementer, whatever's good.
Cool. And I guess, what I would say for anyone listening, watching, as someone who was read it and is implementing it, this is not a sponsored podcast. This is very much me thinking this is absolutely essential information that business owners need to hear. And if you're not ready to hire an implementer, or if you even don't think you're ready to implement it yet, do read the book.
Yep.
Do have a go through the website and look at some of the tools, because like John Mark says, 200,000 businesses using the tools, not 200,000 businesses doing pure EOS, but 200,000 businesses using the tools, because some of those tools, whatever your line of business,
Yep.
whether you're 2 employees or 202 employees, will make such a difference in, I think, just in giving you your sanity back.
Right.
If we rewind to what I was saying at the beginning about A, me being a bottleneck, and B, always having to re-recruit and retrain because we don't document systems properly. The simple takeaway from that is my head's always mangled, and that is what traction really is to me. It's an unhead mangler.
That's right.
And it's early stages, but I can already see the benefits. So, I'm sure you guys, whatever business you're in, are going to find the same too. So, John Mark, thanks a lot for being here, buddy.
Cheers, Matt.
And hopefully we can send some people your way.
Nice one. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.